Captain Chen watched the holographic display as the alien vessels maintained their distance. The bridge of the UES Thunderchild hummed with quiet efficiency, each crew member focused on their station. Outside, the stars remained constant against the void, betraying nothing of the invisible dance taking place between the two species. "They're getting bolder with their scans, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported, his dark eyes never leaving the monitoring station. "Penetrating our outer defensive layers now." Chen nodded, her expression calm despite the intrusion. The Thunderchild represented humanity's finest engineering, a vessel born from centuries of warfare, diplomacy, and survival. Every system, from the reinforced hull to the quantum computing cores, carried the legacy of human ingenuity. "Let them look," she said, rising from her command chair to approach the tactical display. "Deploy Countermeasure Suite Beta 7, passive mode only. I want to track exactly what they're interested in." The crystalline ships of the Astrali pulsed with increasing luminosity as they absorbed data from the human vessel. Within their collective consciousness, analysis patterns formed and reformed, attempting to categorize this new species according to their vast taxonomic database. Anomaly detected. Classification uncertain. The Astrali had encountered thousands of spacefaring civilizations throughout their long history. Some built their technology on biological principles, others on quantum manipulation or gravitational engineering. But the human approach seemed strangely hybrid. Redundant systems operated alongside elegant automation. Primitive combustion mechanisms supported advanced fusion drives. Digital and analog technologies coexisted in ways that defied logical optimization. Navigator Prime Zoax directed the collective's attention toward the ship's defensive systems. Focus analytical resources on weapons capabilities. Determine threat assessment. The scan beams intensified, probing deeper into the Thunderchild's architecture. They mapped power conduits, weapons emplacements, and what appeared to be ammunition storage facilities. The data painted a picture of a species prepared for prolonged combat, unusual for a civilization at this technological stage. On the Thunderchild, Chief Technology Specialist Reiko Tamura monitored the intrusion from her station in the secure server hub deep within the ship's core. Her fingers moved across 3 separate interfaces simultaneously, tracking the alien scan patterns and deploying subtle countermeasures. "They're following our breadcrumbs nicely, Captain," she reported through the comm system. "Currently mapping what they believe is our primary weapons control. The honeypot is holding." Captain Chen allowed herself a small smile. Estimated time until they reached the trigger point. "At current penetration rates, approximately 3 minutes, Captain." Chen crossed to the communication station, where Ensign Martinez sat ready. "Prepare first contact protocols, but hold until my command." She turned to address the bridge crew. "Remember your training, people. We're making history today, one way or another." The Astrali collective consciousness expanded as new data flooded in from their scans. They had mapped 80% of the human vessel's systems now, constructing a comprehensive understanding of the species' technological development. Their conclusion: impressive resilience but limited innovation. The humans appeared to prioritize durability over efficiency, a curious evolutionary choice. Weapons analysis complete. Threat level: moderate. Defensive capabilities insufficient against collective standard armaments. The assessment rippled through the Astrali consciousness with a sense of relief. This new species posed no significant danger to their continued observation mission. Navigator Prime Zoax directed the scan beams toward what appeared to be the ship's central database, eager to understand the biological creatures who had built this fascinating vessel. In the Thunderchild server hub, Tamura's monitors flashed a warning. "Captain, they've taken the bait. They're attempting to access the central database decoy." Captain Chen nodded. "Seal all actual systems behind quantum firewalls. Prepare handshake protocol on my mark." She turned to Jackson at tactical. "Status of defensive systems. All systems green, Captain. Point defense grid charged and ready. Kinetic barriers at full strength. Chen took a deep breath, considering her options. First contact situations define species relationships for generations. The Australia had chosen to study them surreptitiously rather than announce themselves. A concerning first step, but perhaps understandable from a cautious species. "Deploy secondary countermeasure suite," she ordered. "Let's give our observers something interesting to observe. It's time they learn that humans don't appreciate being studied without permission." Throughout the Thunderchild, systems shifted to a heightened alert status, though nothing visible changed on the ship's exterior. The trap was set, the response measured and calculated. Within the Australia ships, the first warning indicators began to appear. Subtle anomalies in their analytical models, unexpected resistance in certain data pathways. But their confidence in their technological superiority prevented them from recognizing the warning signs until it was too late. The dance between species had begun, and humanity was about to demonstrate why underestimating them was always a critical mistake. Lieutenant Commander Jackson's fingers danced across his tactical display, making minute adjustments to the honeypot architecture. Each modification was calculated to appear random. Security protocols activating as if responding to the Australia probes, rather than deliberately guiding them deeper into the trap. "They're following the path exactly as predicted," he reported, a note of professional satisfaction in his voice. "Their scan patterns suggest they believe they're accessing actual ship systems." Captain Chen nodded, watching the three-dimensional representation of the Australia intrusion paths on the main view screen. The alien probe signals appeared as luminous tendrils reaching into the Thunderchild systems, each one carefully contained within virtual environments designed to mimic real ship functions. "How long until they reach the core deception?" she asked. Jackson checked his readings. "At current progression rates, approximately 4 minutes, Captain. They appear to be particularly interested in our propulsion systems." In the crystalline ships surrounding the Thunderchild, the Australia Collective expanded their analysis. The data they gathered painted a fascinating picture of human development. Unlike most species who evolved their technology along predictable paths of efficiency, humans seemed to incorporate competing designs and redundant systems throughout their vessel. Subject species demonstrates unusual technological integration patterns, observed the analysis score. Multiple evolutionary paths maintained simultaneously despite optimization inefficiencies. Navigator Prime Zoax directed the collective's attention toward what appeared to be the ship's propulsion control center. The Australia probes carefully mapped the system, noting with interest how the humans maintained manual override capabilities alongside automated functions. Such redundancy seemed wasteful by Australia standards, yet it suggested a species that valued adaptability over perfect efficiency. "Continue deeper scan of command structure and decision protocols," Zoax instructed. "Determine hierarchy and response patterns." The Australia were so focused on their analysis that they failed to notice subtle changes in their own systems. Diagnostic subroutines subtly modified. Sensor calibrations shifting by fractions of a percent. The counter-intrusion program deployed by the Thunderchild was designed not to attack, but to observe, creating a mirror of the Australia's own analytical approach. In the secure server room, Chief Technology Specialist Tamura monitored the invisible counterattack with intense concentration. "Captain, our mapping algorithms have successfully penetrated their primary data structure. We're building a comprehensive model of their communication protocols and system architecture." "Any signs they detected our presence?" Chen asked. "None, Captain. Their security systems appear sophisticated but predictable. They have strong defenses against conventional cyberattacks, but seem to have no concept of counterintelligence operations." Chen frowned slightly. A species advanced enough for interstellar travel, but without experience in information warfare. That seems unlikely. "Their systems suggest a highly collective consciousness," Captain Tamura explained. "Internal security measures are minimal, as if they never expected anyone to turn their own methods against them." On the bridge, Ensign Martinez looked up from communications. "Captain, I'm detecting increased energy signatures from the alien vessels. They appear to be activating additional scanning systems. Chen turned to Jackson. Are they responding to our counter-intrusion? Negative, Captain. Their energy signature suggests they're simply escalating their analysis. They still don't realize we've detected them. He looked up from his console with a small smile. They're about to access what they believe is our central command database. Throughout the Thunderchild, crew members continued their duties with disciplined calm. Unlike the Astrali, who operated as a unified consciousness, humans functioned as individuals working in concert, each bringing unique perspectives and solutions to their roles while maintaining the cohesion of the whole. The Astrali probes reached what appeared to be the Thunderchild's command core, a treasure trove of information about human decision-making, tactical doctrines, and strategic priorities. In reality, it was an elaborate construction, a virtual environment containing carefully crafted information designed to appear authentic while revealing nothing of actual value. Command structure analysis complete, the Astrali noted with satisfaction. Species demonstrates hierarchical authority model with designated decision nodes. Tactical philosophy emphasizes adaptation over fixed responses. Interesting but primitive compared to collective decision processing. As the Astrali continued their analysis, unaware of the human counter-operation, Captain Chen received confirmation that the trap was fully set. They've reached the trigger point, Captain, Jackson reported. Honeypot is fully engaged. They believe they're accessing our tactical database. Chen nodded, her expression determined. Execute Phase 2. Let's show our observers what humans do when someone attempts to access restricted systems without permission. Throughout the Thunderchild, systems shifted in subtle ways as the crew prepared to demonstrate why humanity had survived and thrived through millennia of conflict and challenges. The Astrali were about to learn an important lesson about underestimating supposedly primitive species. Handshake protocol executing now. Tamura confirmed from the server room, her voice calm despite the historical significance of the moment. Connection established. We now have two-way access. The digital chess game had reached its critical juncture. The Astrali, confident in their technological superiority, were about to discover they weren't the only players on the board. The handshake protocol activated silently, its elegant code structure unfurling like digital silk across the connection the Astrali themselves had established. Chief Technology Specialist Tamura monitored its progress from her station, where 3 separate holographic displays showed the infiltration's advancement through the alien systems. Phase 1 complete, Captain, she reported through the secure comm channel. Our mapping algorithms are indexing their network architecture now. It's remarkable. Captain Chen's voice came through clearly. Elaborate. Their systems are fundamentally different from ours, more organic in structure, almost like neural pathways rather than conventional computing. But the principal vulnerabilities remain. Tamura's fingers adjusted parameters as new data flowed in. They have no concept of partition security or data siloing. Their entire network functions as a unified whole. On the bridge, Captain Chen considered this information. The tactical implications were significant. A species with advanced technology, but fundamental blind spots in security thinking. She turned to Lieutenant Commander Jackson. What are they accessing now? Jackson studied his display. They believe they're reviewing our tactical doctrine database. In reality, they're processing our constructed military history, the version we want them to see. The Astrali Collective processed the incoming data with increasing interest. The human military philosophy they were analyzing showed fascinating contradictions, a species capable of both remarkable brutality and surprising restraint. Their historical conflicts revealed a pattern of adaptation unusual among evolved intelligences. Species demonstrates capacity for rapid tactical evolution, noted the analytical core. Combat doctrine shows 17 major paradigm shifts within their recorded history. Most species stabilize military thinking after achieving theoretical optimization. Navigator Prime Zoax directed the collective's attention to what appeared to be records of human first contact protocols. The information suggested a species that approached unknown intelligences with cautious diplomacy, backed by prepared military response, a balanced approach that matched their hybrid technology. Assessment update. Species classified as cautious integrators rather than aggressive expansionists. JOAX concluded. Recommend continued observation without direct contact. Deep within the Astrala systems, the human counter-intrusion continued its work undetected. Unlike conventional cyberattack methods designed to damage or control, the handshake protocol mapped and mirrored the alien network, learning its operational principles without disrupting its functions. In the secure server room, Tamara's eyes widened as new information populated her displays. Captain, I've accessed what appears to be their species database. They've cataloged thousands of civilizations throughout this sector alone. Are we in there? Chen asked. Not yet. We're classified as unknown species designation pending final analysis. But Captain, Tamara paused, reviewing the data with growing concern. According to this database, there's another species operating in this sector, something called the Krell Imperium. On the bridge, Chen's expression remained composed, but her posture straightened slightly, a subtle tell her crew recognized as heightened alertness. Details. The Astrali classification tags them as aggressive resource acquisitors. Translation: Conquerors. And according to the stellar cartography I'm accessing, we're currently in what the Astrali consider disputed territory between their space and Krell expansion zones. Chen processed this information quickly. What had begun as a simple counterintelligence operation was rapidly evolving into something more complex. They had stumbled into a potential conflict zone between two alien civilizations, neither of which humanity had known existed until today. Tactical. What's the status of the Astrali vessels? She asked. Jackson checked his readings. Still maintaining observation distance, Captain. No weapons signatures detected. Their energy emissions suggest they're focusing all resources on data collection. Chen nodded. Tamara, prioritize gathering tactical information about both the Astrali and this Krell Imperium. I want defensive capabilities, weapons systems, and communication protocols. Already underway, Captain. I'm also detecting what appears to be a historical archive of Krell Astrali encounters. The translation algorithms are processing it now. Throughout the Thunderchild, the crew continued their duties with professional focus, unaware of how dramatically their mission parameters were about to change. The ship had been dispatched to this sector on a routine patrol and mapping expedition. First contact with one alien species was historic enough. The potential involvement of a second, apparently hostile civilization, raised the stakes exponentially. In the crystalline ships, the Astrali continued their analysis of human culture and technology, still believing themselves undetected observers rather than the observed. Their collective consciousness hummed with satisfaction at the wealth of information they were gathering about this curious new species. They remained completely unaware that humans had not only detected their presence, but had turned the tables entirely, analyzing the analyzers with tools purpose-built from centuries of information warfare between human nations. The first subtle anomaly appeared in the Astrali network, a minor processing delay in a tertiary system. A diagnostic subroutine investigated and found nothing unusual, unaware that the delay itself was the handshake protocol adjusting its parameters to better integrate with the alien architecture. Captain Chen reviewed the incoming data about the sector's geopolitical situation, her mind already calculating potential scenarios and responses. One fact was becoming increasingly clear. The Thunderchild's encounter with the Astrali was about to become significantly more complicated than a simple case of uninvited observation. The first significant disruption in the Astrali network manifested as a cascade of diagnostic alerts. What began as minor processing delays expanded into noticeable anomalies throughout their distributed consciousness. The analytical core, designed to process external data rather than examine its own functions, struggled to identify the source of the irregularities. System integrity variance detected, the monitoring subroutines reported. Causality undetermined. Navigator Prime Zoax diverted computational resources to investigate, momentarily reducing the intensity of their scans on the human vessel. The diagnostic programs found nothing overtly malicious, no destructive code or invasive protocols. Instead, they discovered something far more confusing: evidence of observation. Someone was watching them, mapping their systems, cataloging their methods, just as they were doing to the humans. Impossible, Zoax concluded. The biological vessel lacks the technological sophistication for counterintelligence at this level. Yet the evidence continued to accumulate. The Australia network was being indexed, analyzed, and documented with a precision that matched their own analytical standards. More disturbing still, the process had been underway for some time before they detected it. Aboard the Thunderchild, Lieutenant Commander Jackson noted the change in the alien scan patterns. "Captain, they've reduced scan intensity by approximately 60%. Their focus appears to have shifted inward." Captain Chen nodded. "They've discovered our presence in their systems. Should we withdraw?" Jackson asked. "Negative. Continue data extraction according to protocol." Chen's expression remained composed, but there was a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. "They initiated this exchange. Let's see how they respond to having the tables turned." In the secure server room, Chief Technology Specialist Tamura worked with focused intensity. "Captain, I've completed preliminary analysis of the Krell tactical database from Australia records. Transmitting summary to your station now." The information that appeared on Chen's display painted a concerning picture. The Krell Imperium operated on principles of expansion through resource acquisition, a polite term for conquest. Their technological level appeared roughly equivalent to Earth's, though with different specializations. Where humans had focused on resilience and adaptability, the Krell emphasized overwhelming force projection. More concerning was their proximity. According to Australia's stellar cartography, the nearest Krell outpost was less than 2 light-years from the Thunderchild's current position. Within the crystalline ships, the Australia Collective experienced something unfamiliar: uncertainty. Their standard protocols offered no guidance for this situation. They had always been the observers, never the observed. The human counter-intrusion continued despite their awareness of it, mapping their systems with methodical precision. "Tactical reassessment required," Zoax concluded. "Previous threat analysis incomplete." The Australia initiated a controlled withdrawal of their scanning tendrils from the human vessel, intending to regroup and reconsider their approach. The moment they began this process, Captain Chen gave the order they had been waiting for. "They're pulling back. Execute communication protocol." Throughout the Thunderchild, systems reconfigured as the ship prepared to broadcast on frequencies the counter-intrusion had identified as the Australia's primary communication channels. Ensign Martinez at Communications worked rapidly to implement the transmission package Tamura had prepared. "Broadcast ready, Captain," Martinez reported. Chen nodded. "Proceed." The message transmitted to the Australia ships was elegant in its simplicity: a complete analysis of their vessels, including specifications, crew composition, and technological capabilities, followed by a formal greeting in what the handshake protocol had identified as their mathematical communication standard. Within the Australia Collective, the incoming transmission caused a ripple of astonishment. The humans had not only detected their presence and countered their scans, but had correctly decoded their communication methods and composed a message that adhered perfectly to Australia's syntactical structures. The species demonstrates previously undetected capabilities, the analytical core concluded, processing the human message. Significant reassessment required. On the Thunderchild's bridge, the crew waited for a response. Captain Chen stood calmly, hands clasped behind her back, the very picture of composed authority. "Their energy signatures are fluctuating, Captain," Jackson reported. "I believe they're discussing." The minutes stretched on as the Australia deliberated. Finally, a response came. A transmission directed at the Thunderchild on the same frequencies they had used. "They're acknowledging our message, Captain," Martinez said, sounding surprised. and they're requesting direct communication. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Open the channel. The main view screen activated, showing a swirling pattern of crystalline structures that slowly coalesced into a roughly humanoid form. The Astrali's attempt to create a visual representation that humans could relate to. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Union ship Thunderchild. The translated voice began, its tone carrying a mixture of caution and respect. I am Navigator Prime Joax of the Astrali Collective. It appears we have underestimated your species considerably. Chen nodded acknowledgement. That seems to be a common reaction to humanity, Navigator Prime. Perhaps we should begin this relationship again. This time with proper introductions. The conference room aboard the Thunderchild had been hastily prepared for first contact protocols. The central holographic display showed a three-dimensional rendering of both Astrali and human vessels, rotating slowly as Captain Chen and her senior officers awaited their guests. Structural integrity fields are in place, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported. The environmental adjustments for Astrali physiology have been implemented according to the data we extracted. Chen nodded, smoothing the front of her formal uniform. Remember the protocols, everyone. This is no longer a counterintelligence operation. It's a diplomatic mission. The Astrali may have begun our relationship with an unauthorized scan, but we'll determine the path forward. The door chimed, and Ensign Martinez entered. Captain, the Astrali delegation is ready to transport aboard. Their Navigator Prime will be accompanied by 3 specialist entities. Proceed, Chen ordered. The air in the designated arrival zone shimmered with particles of light, coalescing into 4 crystalline forms. Each Astrali being stood approximately 2 meters tall, their translucent bodies refracting the room's lighting into subtle rainbows that danced across the bulkheads. Unlike the humanoid representation they had projected during their video communication, their true forms resembled complex geometric structures, more like living crystals than anything biological by Earth standards. Navigator Prime Joax's form pulsed with internal light as it stepped forward. The crystalline structure shifted slightly, forming what appeared to be sensory apparatus oriented toward the human delegation. Captain Chen, the translator rendered the harmonic vibrations emanating from the Astrali. We extend formal greetings from the Astrali Collective. Chen stepped forward, maintaining a respectful distance. Navigator Prime Joax, on behalf of the Earth Union, I welcome you aboard the Thunderchild. The senior Astrali's crystalline form flickered with patterns of light, an expression of emotion that the human systems were still learning to interpret. We must acknowledge our error in approach. It is not standard collective protocol to initiate analysis without communication. Yet you did exactly that, Chen observed, her tone neutral rather than accusatory. A decision we now recognize as flawed, Joax admitted. Your species presented unusual patterns in our long-range observations. Your technological implementation defies standard evolutionary models. Jackson activated the central display, which now showed the schematics and specifications of Astrali vessels, information extracted during their counter-intrusion. We found your technology equally fascinating, Navigator Prime, particularly your quantum phase propulsion system. The Astrali delegation vibrated in what the translation algorithm identified as surprise. One of the specialist entities moved forward, its crystalline structure more angular than Joax's. You have mapped our propulsion systems with remarkable accuracy, it noted. Our analysis suggested your scanning capabilities were significantly less advanced. Chief Technology Specialist Tamura smiled slightly. We allowed you to believe that, Specialist, just as we allowed you to believe your presence was undetected. An effective deception, Joax acknowledged. The collective has encountered 17,812 spacefaring civilizations. None have reversed our analytical methods against us so effectively. Captain Chen gestured toward the conference table. Perhaps we should discuss why the Astrali Collective felt it necessary to analyze an unknown vessel without proper introduction, particularly in a sector bordering Krell Imperium territory. The mention of the Krell sent visible pulses through the crystalline forms of all four astrali. Joax moved to the offered position at the table, its structure adjusting to approximate a seated posture. "You accessed our intelligence archives," it stated. "We did," Chen confirmed, taking her own seat. "Just as you attempted to access ours. The difference is that we obtained useful information." The angular specialist emitted a harmonic that the translator didn't fully capture, something between amusement and alarm. "Your species operates with unexpected directness, Captain. Humanity has found that clarity prevents misunderstandings," Chen replied. "So let me be clear. We know the Krell Imperium represents a significant threat in this sector. We know the Astrali Collective has maintained a policy of avoidance rather than confrontation with them. And we know they detect and target advanced technology signatures." Zoax's crystalline form pulsed with acknowledgement. "Your understanding is accurate, Captain. The Krell expand through conquest. They detect energy signatures that indicate advanced civilizations and harvest both resources and technology." "Which explains your interest in our ship," Jackson concluded. "You weren't merely curious about a new species. You were assessing whether our presence might attract Krell attention to this sector." The Astrali Navigator Prime structure shifted in what appeared to be the equivalent of a nod. "Your vessel's energy signature registered on our long-range sensors. If we detected you, then so did the Krell," Chen finished, making this conversation significantly more urgent than a standard first contact protocol. The tactical briefing room hummed with tension as Captain Chen studied the stellar map displayed across the central holotable. The Astrali data on Krell movement patterns revealed a disturbing trend: systematic expansion through precisely calculated incursions rather than random raids. "They're methodical," Chen observed, tracing a finger along the path of Krell advancement. "Each conquered system creates a staging area for the next push." Navigator Prime Joax's crystalline form pulsed with agreement. "The Krell operate with singular purpose. They identify technology-bearing civilizations, assess their defensive capabilities, then strike with overwhelming force." Lieutenant Commander Jackson frowned at the projection. "According to these timestamps, they've accelerated their expansion rate by 30% over the past solar cycle." "What changed?" One of the Astrali specialists, the one Chen had learned was designated as the collective's historical analyst, shifted forward. Its crystalline structure reconfigured to project data patterns directly into the holographic display. "The Krell encountered a civilization that resisted successfully," the specialist explained. "The Morrigan Conclave fought the first Krell fleet to a standstill using distributed defense networks and adaptive countermeasures." "And the Krell response?" Chen asked, already suspecting the answer. "They returned with a fleet 3 times larger," Joax said. "The Morrigan resistance lasted 16 standard days. No survivors remained." The implications hung heavy in the air. The Krell didn't merely conquer, they eradicated civilizations that demonstrated significant resistance, perhaps to prevent the spread of effective defense strategies. The briefing room door slid open as Chief Technology Specialist Tamura entered, her expression grim. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting energy signatures consistent with Krell propulsion systems. Multiple vessels, bearing 147 Mark 38. Every human officer in the room straightened, instinctively preparing for combat operations. The Astrali delegates vibrated with patterns that the translation algorithm identified as alarm. "Time to intercept?" Chen asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Tamura consulted her datapad. "At current velocity, approximately 43 minutes, Captain." "They've detected our combined energy signatures," Joax concluded, crystalline structure flickering rapidly. "The collective must withdraw immediately. Our observation vessels lack defensive capabilities." Chen turned to the Navigator Prime, her expression measured but resolute. "If you flee, Navigator Prime, you simply postpone the inevitable. The Krell now know this sector contains advanced technology. They will systematically hunt down its source. The collective has survived for millennia by avoiding direct confrontation, Joax countered. And how many civilizations have the Krell destroyed while the Astrali watched from a safe distance? Jackson asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. The angular specialist pulsed with defensive patterns. We are observers, not warriors. The collective preserves knowledge, not life. An uncomfortable silence filled the room as the humans processed this philosophy, so alien to their own deeply held belief in protecting others. Captain Chen stepped closer to the holographic display, studying the approaching Krell signatures. Then she looked directly at Joax, her decision made. The Thunderchild will hold position and engage the Krell fleet. The Astrali delegation emitted harmonic vibrations of shock. A single vessel against a Krell battle group. Joax's translator rendered the disbelief perfectly. That is not combat. It is suicide. Chen smiled thinly. Navigator Prime, your analysis of human military capabilities was incomplete. We allowed you to see what we wanted you to see. She turned to her officers. Implement Combat Protocol Sierra 9. All hands to battle stations. Throughout the Thunderchild, alert signals pulsed as the crew smoothly transitioned to combat readiness. What had appeared to be a standard exploration vessel began a metamorphosis as hidden systems came online and concealed weapons platforms emerged from recessed compartments. The Astrali watched in fascination as the human ship transformed before their sensors. Armor plates shifted to reveal point defense turrets. Hull sections retracted to expose missile launchers. Energy signatures previously masked by dampening fields flared to life as power surged through systems the Astrali scans had never detected. Remarkable, the Astrali technical specialist observed, its crystalline structure pulsing with new analytical patterns. Your vessel concealed its true capabilities beneath layers of misdirection. Jackson nodded, moving to his tactical station. Standard human protocol when operating in unknown territory. We show our teeth only when necessary. Navigator Prime Joax's form shifted as it processed this new information. You intentionally appeared vulnerable to potential threats. A lesson humanity learned through bitter experience, Chen explained, reviewing the tactical readouts as they updated. The most dangerous predator is often the one that doesn't immediately appear threatening. Tamara's voice came through the ship-wide communication system. Engineering reports all combat systems online, Captain. Weapon capacitors at full charge. Chen turned to the Astrali delegation, her expression resolute. Navigator Prime, the Thunderchild will engage the Krell fleet regardless of your decision. However, your sensor technology could provide a significant tactical advantage. Will the Astrali collective observe from a distance once again, or will you stand with us? The Thunderchild surged forward to meet the approaching Krell fleet, its engines pushing to maximum acceleration. On the bridge, Captain Chen stood calmly at the center of controlled chaos as her crew prepared for humanity's first interstellar combat. Tactical analysis complete, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported, his fingers dancing across his console. 17 Krell vessels approaching in standard assault formation. Their lead vessels are powering weapon systems. Chen nodded. Deploy countermeasures as planned. Let's see how they respond to uncertainty. The Thunderchild launched what appeared to be a barrage of standard missiles. Instead of detonating on impact, however, the projectiles split apart at precise coordinates, releasing clouds of specialized particles calibrated to disrupt sensor systems. The deployment created a three-dimensional grid pattern that the human vessel immediately used to execute a series of rapid maneuvers impossible to track accurately through the interference. From the observation deck, Navigator Prime Joax and the Astrali specialists watched with fascination. Though they had declined direct participation, their scientific curiosity had overcome their instinct to flee. Their crystalline forms pulsed with analytical light as they recorded every aspect of the unfolding battle. The human vessel implements unpredictable vector changes, the technical specialist observed. They intentionally create sensor shadows to mask their movements. Joax's form flickered with realization. They're applying the principles of ancient water-based naval warfare to three-dimensional space. Fascinating adaptation. On the bridge, Ensign Martinez monitored communications. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the Krell fleet. Universal Translator is processing now." The main view screen activated to display a humanoid figure with distinctly reptilian features. Multiple horn-like protrusions framed a face dominated by vertical pupilled eyes that held no trace of compromise. "Unidentified vessel," the translator rendered the harsh syllables. "You have entered territory claimed by the Krell Imperium. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Captain Chen met the alien's gaze calmly. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Union ship Thunderchild. We do not recognize your claim to this sector and will not surrender. I suggest you withdraw." The Krell commander's scaled features contorted in what might have been amusement. "One vessel dares to challenge the might of the Imperium. Your species' overconfidence will be its epitaph." The transmission cut as the Krell fleet accelerated, breaking into three distinct attack groups. Their formation demonstrated sophisticated tactical thinking, veterans of countless conquests applying proven strategies against what they perceived as an isolated and outmatched defender. "They're executing a standard envelopment pattern," Jackson observed, "attempting to cut off all retreat vectors." Chen smiled slightly. "Exactly as expected. Execute Thermopylae protocol." Throughout the Thunderchild, systems reconfigured as power redistributed to specialized weapons platforms, unseen in human conflicts for generations. What the Krell, and even the Astrali, could not know was that the ship represented more than just Earth's current military technology. It carried specialized systems designed to counter theoretical alien threats, drawing from humanity's long history of preparing for worst-case scenarios. The lead Krell vessels fired energy weapons that lanced through space toward the human ship. Instead of attempting to evade, the Thunderchild's hull shimmered as adaptive energy dispersal fields activated, technology developed specifically to counter unknown energy weapon configurations. Minimal damage to outer hull plating, Tamura reported from engineering. Their energy signatures are logged and countermeasures are adapting. Chen nodded. "Return fire. Target their lead vessel's propulsion systems. Let's see how they adapt when their formation is disrupted." The Thunderchild's main batteries unleashed precisely calibrated energy pulses that struck the Krell flagship with surgical accuracy. The alien vessel lurched as its engines faltered, forcing the entire formation to compensate. In the observation deck, the Astrali technical specialists' crystalline structure pulsed rapidly. The human weapons are modulating between frequencies to penetrate Krell shields. How did they determine the correct resonance without prior encounter data? Zoax's form shifted in what approximated a gesture of realization. They extracted the information from our database and improvised a counter-strategy in mere hours. The battle intensified as the Krell adjusted their approach, abandoning their standard tactics in favor of concentrated firepower. Energy beams converged on the human vessel from multiple vectors, overwhelming certain sections of the defensive fields. The Thunderchild shuddered as impacts registered across its hull. "Sections 12 through 17 reporting damage," Jackson announced, his voice remaining steady despite the situation. "We're routing power to compensate." Captain Chen studied the tactical display, noting how the Krell fleet's movement patterns were changing. They're adapting more quickly than anticipated. Implement Contingency Beta 3. Across the battlefield, dormant devices deployed earlier by the Thunderchild suddenly activated, emitting precisely tuned energy pulses that interfered with Krell targeting systems. The disruption created a momentary advantage that Chen immediately exploited. "All batteries, concentrated fire on designated coordinates. Execute now." The battle had raged for nearly 3 hours, an eternity in space combat. The void between the combatants was filled with expanding clouds of debris, drifting remnants of Krell vessels destroyed by the Thunderchild's unexpectedly effective defenses. The human ship itself bore the scars of repeated energy impacts, with sections of its outer hull blackened and deformed from concentrated fire. On the bridge, Captain Chen reviewed the tactical situation with grim determination. 7 Krell vessels had been disabled or destroyed, but the remaining 10 continued their relentless assault, adapting their tactics with each exchange. Hull integrity at 62%, Jackson reported, his uniform stained with coolant from a ruptured conduit. Main weapons capacitors holding at 40% charge. Chen nodded, analyzing the movement patterns of the remaining Krell ships. They had abandoned their standard formation in favor of unpredictable attack vectors, a sign they recognized the threat the human vessel represented. They're learning, she observed, beginning to mimic our evasive patterns. In the observation deck, the Australi delegation had maintained their position throughout the battle, recording every maneuver, every tactical decision. Navigator Prime Zoax's crystalline form had shifted multiple times during the engagement, its configuration reflecting the collective's growing reassessment of human capabilities. The Krell have never sustained such losses from a single defender, the historical specialist noted, its harmonics conveying astonishment. This engagement contradicts all existing combat models in our database. Zoax's structure pulsed with decision. The human vessel fights with honor and skill against overwhelming odds. The collective can no longer remain mere observers. The Navigator Prime established direct communication with the bridge. Captain Chen, the Australi collective offers assistance. Our vessels possess advanced sensor technology that could provide tactical advantage against the remaining Krell ships. Chen glanced at the view screen, surprise momentarily replacing her battle focus. I thought the collective avoided direct confrontation, Navigator Prime. Observation without action is no longer acceptable, Zoax replied. The Thunderchild has demonstrated that resistance is possible. We choose to stand with humanity. The 3 Australi vessels that had maintained distance throughout the battle now moved into supporting positions around the Thunderchild. Their crystalline hulls emitted precisely calibrated energy patterns that created a composite sensor grid more detailed than anything humans had developed. We are transmitting real-time analytical data of Krell shield harmonics and power fluctuations, Zoax explained. Their defensive systems cycle through predictable patterns that can be exploited with correctly timed weapons fire. Chief Technology Specialist Tamura integrated the Australi data into the Thunderchild's targeting systems. Captain, this changes everything. We can target micro-fluctuations in their shields with 93% accuracy. Chen didn't waste the opportunity. Recalibrate all weapons based on Australi data. Coordinate fire timing with their sensor pulses. The next exchange proved decisive. The Thunderchild's weapons fire, now perfectly synchronized with momentary weaknesses in Krell defensive systems, cut through their shields with devastating efficiency. 3 more enemy vessels were disabled in rapid succession, their engines and weapons systems precisely targeted to neutralize rather than destroy. The Krell commander, facing unexpected defeat, ordered a tactical withdrawal. The remaining vessels accelerated away from the battlefield, maintaining defensive postures as they retreated. As the last Krell ship disappeared from sensor range, a moment of stunned silence fell over the Thunderchild's bridge before erupting into controlled celebration. Humanity had faced its first interstellar combat challenge and emerged victorious through a combination of preparation, adaptability, and unexpected alliance. In the aftermath, Captain Chen met with Navigator Prime Zoax in the conference room, now serving as a makeshift diplomatic chamber. Both leaders carried the weight of a pivotal moment in their respective histories. The Krell will return, Zoax stated, its crystalline form now configured in what humans were beginning to recognize as a posture of respect. Their Imperium does not tolerate defeat. When they do, they won't face a single ship, Chen replied. They'll find Earth's full fleet, prepared with everything we've learned from this encounter. And perhaps Australi vessels alongside, Zoax suggested, surprising even its own delegation. The collective has observed for too long while other civilizations fell to conquest. Your courage has compelled us to reconsider our non-intervention protocols. Chen smiled slightly. From uninvited observers to battle allies in less than a standard day. That must be some kind of diplomatic record. The Astrali began our interaction by analyzing your ship without permission. Joax acknowledged. We believed we were studying a primitive vessel of limited capability. And what did you learn instead? Chen asked. The Navigator Prime's crystalline structure shifted into a new configuration, one the translation algorithm identified as conveying profound respect. That appearance is deceive. That determination often outweighs technological advantage, and that perhaps the most valuable knowledge cannot be gathered through distant observation, but only through direct engagement. As repair crews worked throughout the Thunderchild, humans and Astrali began exchanging technical knowledge and cultural information, laying the foundation for what would become humanity's first interstellar alliance. The Krell Imperium had unknowingly accomplished what peaceful contact might never have achieved. They had given two vastly different species a common purpose. The first transmission to Earth Union Command carried a simple message. First contact established. First battle won. Humanity has found both new allies and new challenges among the stars.